Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I'm Stephen Means. That is Stefan Krajisnik, and that is Andrew Gillis. And we talked with Ryan Day for the final time on a Monday because it's week 0 and week 1 is next week. Ohio State is less than 14 days away from opening their regular season, though some Big Ten teams will be watching football this week, and we made it, guys. There's finally going to be college football on the screens on Saturdays. No more TRO and lawyer talk. Well, stay tuned. We'll get into that later on.
We had high school football, which made me feel good.
Yeah, I'll say this to start with some vibes. 'Cause I think vibes do matter if you analyze it the right way, right? It doesn't always have to be like this hyperbole, but like vibes do matter. And I sent this to our texter 614-350-3315. I felt like this was the vast difference between I don't know who my quarterback is, and we have to play the number 1 team in the country in week 1 versus I know who my quarterback is. I know who my best weapon is. I know who my starting running back is. I know my starting offensive line for the most part. Like I have so much I know, and we're playing Ball State this year in week 1, Stefan. I just felt the word I used to our texters was ease. Like this was, I don't know, like Ryan Day was kind of an open book today. And again, we probably will get more of an open book next week. And then the week after that, he'll probably go back into locked in, not giving you any good answers mode. But I felt like in comparison to where we were a year ago, from a Ryan Day psyche standpoint, I felt like this was a very different Ryan Day, which is hilarious given the fact that he was coming off a national championship last year.
I think that is funny. I think there's an interesting mix here of, he's got a lot of answers, right? And I think you could see the way that he talked about that when he talked about, how he sleeps at night knowing that Carson Hinsman is an experienced player he has at center. Julian Sandin is now an experienced player that he has at quarterback. Like those two spots in and of itself, like he used that in the context of talking about like, we're ramping up the volume and things like that and practicing in the afternoon because it's going to start getting, hot as we prepare for Texas. And you're kind of just sitting there being like, and I think it gives them a little bit of ease knowing Julian and Carson, the two guys that would probably be impacted the most by some level of noise and environment, like have been there, done that, right? Like you have that in such key spots. And then the places where you are still, maybe searching for answers, right? It seems like the starting offensive line is going to be Ian Moore, Luke Montgomery, Carson Hinsman, Austin Sarrell, Phillip Daniels. But also like if they're playing Texas week 1, I think Ryan Day comes out and says like, this is my starting offensive line. I think he's kind of looking at it being like, this is the group of 5 that we think is the best. Guess what? We can also like put a lot on film in the Ball State game. And if for whatever reason we walk out of week 1 and like Ian Moore is not looking like the guy we thought he was going to look like, okay, then we still have time to reevaluate and figure out what our best unit is. But by the time we get to the Texas game, so it's just like there, I think is this relative ease with like what you have coming back, but then also knowing that, Brock Boyd, if you're trying to figure out what he is, okay, we'll put it out. We'll put it out there against Ball State, and if he looks good, then like we know we can trust him against Texas. I think back to last year, it's like, how many snaps do you think Bo Jackson gets against Texas if they play week 2 instead of week 1? Probably a good amount, right? Like if he looks the way that he looked in some of those games post Texas, like I just think it was week 1. You kind of had to know what you have and get through that with what you have without even being able to really see what your full roster looked like. So there is he was asked, by Bill Rabinowitz later in the presser, like, seems like you're pretty happy with what you got. And he's like, no, I hate everything and everyone and nothing's good. It's like, okay, like, yeah, that side of coaching still exists. And like they had a ton of penalties, it sounds like, in the scrimmages. So it's like, that's very much like a preseason thing. That's something I alluded to, I think, at the start of camp, like what you're going to be looking for in those first 3 practices we saw. Like, I want to see how clean, like the operation is. And like, is this a team that's going to be penalized early in the season? Like that could still be, something that he worries about. But in Bill Rabinowitz's defense, like a lot of the presser did come across as like, okay, like I feel pretty good about what we got here. We're going to put a lot of it on film against Ball State, kind of finalize some things and like be in a pretty decent spot before, really getting into what he called a monster schedule. So it just seems like the preseason is maybe a week longer than, it was last season just because of what was coming in week 1. So like confident. I think he's confident like what this team is.
Yeah, I think he knows what he has, and to your point, like I think there's maybe a middle ground of, if you were saying if they were playing Texas, he might just come out and say this is what our offensive line is going to be, or this is whatever. I think he might, and then I think there's also an element of, if they were playing Texas week 1 and somebody asked today about Brock Boyd, and what has flashed with him. I think we might get an answer, maybe not for this specifically, but just in a question in this vein of, we'll see. We might have 5 receivers on the field for the first play. We might have none. We might come out in the triple option. We might come out in the wishbone. We might have 6 offensive linemen, and we might have 4. Like, I think he would, I think there's a middle ground of, we've got to keep something hidden. We've got to keep something kept back, and you don't want to just say, like, here's what we're doing when you play Texas. There is, like, less of that when you play Ball State. Of course, you're going to hold some things back and, not do everything that you want to do against Texas. But, Quay Rousseau said it a couple of weeks ago, like, no disrespect. He didn't say no disrespect to Ball State, but I'm saying no disrespect to Ball State. He said, you'll see week 2 what I'm going to look like. And everybody's kind of looking at that game. So I think there's an element of that. And like you said, there's less uncertainty. We got to the post-game press conference last year after Texas, and he was like, we could have given Julian more. We could have done this. We could have done that. But you had a first-time play caller. You had a first-time, like at any level, first-time play caller. You had a first-time quarterback. You had a lot of new working in on defense. And, like, you might have felt really good about Arvell Reese, but Arvell Reese had not played yet. And you got to remember, like, these football coaches are creatures of habit, and they don't like to leave anything to chance. And when you have a first time starter, even if it is a guy like Arvell Reese, it leaves something to chance, because you're like, let's see what it looks like in a game. You might think he's going to be a first round pick, but you got to see it on the field. So I think there's just a lot more certainty. It's like cost certainty, basically, of what this year's team is. And yeah, there's no reason to not feel confident in it, because if you're Ryan Day, because whatever kinks in the system you have, if it looks a little laggy, if it's not quite crisp enough, you've got a game to figure it out. And it's not a game that, again, no disrespect to the Ball State Cardinals, it's a game that you're not worried about losing. So you can figure some stuff out and not only see how some things look, but you can kind of get a dress rehearsal going. And last year you just didn't have that. And it was very much a, let's get through week 1 and then figure it out.
Okay, so here are the things we're going to hit on today. If we had like a little ESPN ticker, we just have it down there of all the things we're going to hit on. Also announces captains in Block O this weekend. We'll get into that. We can get into Ryan Day's thoughts about NFL players randomly ending back up on. Here's the deal. No, I'm going to save my thoughts for them. I'm going to get into that. And then I want to play a game. I want to play based on Ryan Day's words, the last 2 times we've spoken to him, let's range it on a scale, position by position. So let's start with the captains, because that was the first thing that happened this weekend. Brandon Ennis is the Block O. I don't think anybody was shocked by that. Ryan Day was saying that that's a Mick Marotti, his staff, and Ryan Day vote, and it was not even close. It was like definitely Brandon Ennis, and I don't think any of us were shocked by that. I think the only questions you had were Brandon Ennis had to wait 2 years to get his number, and now he's got to give it up because he didn't get it as a freshman. He was wearing 11, and then maybe he would have gotten it as a sophomore, but Quinshon Judkins showed up, so he finally got it last year, and now he has to go to a whole new number this year. But fine, he's wearing the Block O this year. None of us are that shocked about this. Kenyatta Jackson, Jalen McClain, Peyton Pierce, Julian Sand, Austin Saravell, Jeremiah Smith. Gillis, you first. Of that 7, this is the 7th time in Ohio State history that they've had 7 captains. The last time they had 7 captains was 2020. Of that list of captains, which one to you is the most, I don't want to say impressive, but just like says the most about that guy?
Good question. There's 2 that I'll give, and I'll say Julian.
Okay.
I'll say Julian, because there's this element of you've got to take a step as a leader. And like they talked about this with Jalen McClain. Like we knew Ennis, Kenyatta Jackson had been around a while, and we knew that, people had kind of looked at him. Like even last year, people were kind of looking at him. Jalen McClain kind of felt like that was the push the offseason. Like, but you needed Julian to do this. Like this wasn't like, I don't think this was a negotiable thing. Like, I don't know if Devin Sanchez became the leader that everybody's looking at Peyton Pierce. Like, okay, like, that's cool. I don't know if anybody's like, necessarily like down on that, or if it was Carson Hinsman and not Austin Saravell, like earlier, all right, sure. But I think with Julian, I think this says a lot about his growth. I think this says a lot about where the team is at. There's this element like I think it was Carson Hinzman a few weeks ago was like, oh man, you should have seen Julian when he came in here. He said he looked like a little French girl. I think that was the quote. And I think that that you might not think that matters, but when you come in and you look at a kid and see how he develops, what do you say, he was at 215 now? Mm-hmm. Like you see him put the work in the weight room, you see him become more vocal. He said that after that Texas game, it was kind of like early on in the year, it was just kind of like, yep. And he would just kind of not really say anything. And as the year progressed, he really started to say anything. It's this element of, you kind of need your quarterback to be the leader. And I understand that there's arguments for like this for everybody, but happened in Friday Night Lights when Coach Taylor looked at Matt Saracen and said, hey, Matt, quarterback's captain. Well, guess what? You need your quarterback to be the captain. And I think Julian being that leader on and off the field is really, really important for this team because you can now direct traffic maybe in a way that you couldn't last year. And you need that guy feeling confident in not just what he's doing, but you need him feeling confident in telling and directing and leading other people in that offense because, no disrespect to anybody else on that offense or really anybody else on the defense, but it's like, you could have a great leader at that position, but if your quarterback doesn't have confidence in himself, if your quarterback doesn't inspire confidence in others, that's not a great place to be. So I think Julian being a captain is a big deal.
Stefan, who's yours?
It's Jeremiah Smith for me, man. Like that, I've spent since they came out with those announcements on Saturday. Like it's just been front of mind for me. There's the picture Jeremiah posts of him fist bumping Ryan Day after being named a captain. Like you can see a tear like coming down his face, right? Like they post a video where Cortez Hankton and Jeremiah Smith call JJ's dad and are telling him how Jeremiah got named a captain. Like his dad, who as seen Jeremiah become this player that he's become, is talking about like what it means to be a captain at Ohio State, right? Like what high regard like that puts you in. It's just, I've said it before. I said it last week when we did our Jeremiah Smith, 3 episodes, the recruit, the player, and the legacy. And it's like, he could have so easily shown up, been this 5-star recruit who breaks all the records and puts up these impressive numbers, plays 3 years, wins the Natty, beats Michigan, and leaves. And it's like, man, that guy was awesome at Ohio State. But like he's ingrained himself in the culture, and that remains something that just sticks with me. Watching how much it ate at him that they lost to Michigan in 2024, right? Mm-hmm. Watching this spring, he sits in front of the podium, and the first thing that he wants to talk about is how he feels responsible for like losing to Miami, right? And like there's just so many talented recruits that it's easy to show up and leave, and fans talk about how great you were, but like you're not talked about as like this icon and kind of like what the program and the culture and like all that stuff means. And like he's been an Iron Buckeye every single time. He's now a captain as a junior, right? And like being a captain is like, let's not pretend like JJ showed up and was the most vocal guy from the time he got here. He's very confident in himself, right? That's never lacked. Whenever he stepped on the microphone, it's been very clear that he's confident in himself. But like it's like you wrote about it, Steven. Like Caleb Downs like challenged him after the Cotton Bowl on. So it's like, all right, dude, like you're up now. Like I'm leaving, this guy's leaving, Sonny's leaving. Like you got to be that guy now. And he took that challenge like personally, obviously, and is now a captain. Like it all. I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's small-minded to think that a guy like JJ could have showed up and not really ingrained himself. Like I don't think fans would have batted if being a captain wasn't important to Jeremiah Smith. Guess what? He's putting up 1,300 yards. I don't care, right? And like that's not the case with him. Like you tweeted about it either Saturday or Sunday, Steven, of just like everything that fans care about and tweet about. And like I'm not saying like JJ is like chronically online, but he sees stuff, right? You can't avoid it. He's 19, 20, 21 years old, however old he is. Like it's like that's what they're like. That's what our generation is. That's what their generation is. Like you look at your phone, right? You can't like ignore that kind of stuff. It's out there, right? You can't. JJ can't be the only student in Ohio State University that doesn't check his phone, right? Like that's just not. It's just not how it works, right? But like that stuff is like always out there, and it seems like he's always had a pulse like on it, right? Like he sees when Which receiver was it that people were like comparing him to recently?
Tony.
Yeah, and it's just like, all right, like I know I'm better than him, but it's like
Yeah.
he has a pulse on like what Ohio State fans care about, right?
Yeah.
And I think so. I think to him, like he knows like it's very important to fans that like who the captains are. It's very important to fans who the Iron Buckeyes are, right? It's very important to fans who cares about Ohio State and cares about Columbus and things of that nature. Like he could come here, play football, and go to Miami every single time he has an off day, but like he's very much ingrained himself in the culture of what Ohio State is. And I think that's kind of capped by being named a captain. And I think it's capped by how he reacted to that.
I agree, Gillis. CJ was a captain his second year as a starter. Justin Fields was a captain his second year as a starter. Julian Sanan needed to be a captain his second year as a starter. I think that's a non-negotiable thing, and that has been the story of the offseason. So if the conclusion of that is, well, now he is a captain, then whatever they were doing with him all offseason, that means it is a success. Now comes the part that, football part that people want to learn. It's like, okay, is he going to take the next step so that Ohio State can win a national championship? Yeah, man, JJ cares. And it's if there's a thing he's supposed to do as an Ohio State football player, he wants to do it. And he didn't have to say a bunch. You can just see that in his actions and everything he's done since he's gotten here. Austin and Brandon being second-time captains is impressive. That's a hard thing to be able to accomplish. James Laurinaitis told Peyton Pierce's family that he had the most votes of anybody. That was not supposed to be public information.
Was not supposed to do that.
Yeah. Ryan Day was in a really good mood today.
Ryan Day's comment was somewhere in between of like, James Laurinaitis shouldn't have said that, but also why didn't our media team cut that from the video?
Yeah. Ryan was in a really good
mood. They could have. It was like right in the middle of it, if I remember.
They could have blurred it out. But Ryan was talking about how Peyton's essentially just been a natural leader since he got here. There are things that, to the point you're talking about with the phones, like, yeah, we're all from a generation. If you were born in 1990 or later, there's a huge portion of your life that is spent looking at your phone. Like, that's just how you've been programmed to operate. And so Mick Marotti has to like coach that out of these kids. Right. And so he forces them to talk in front of people. And Dave was talking about how it felt always natural to Peyton Pierce. I think that is very cool that the linebackers, I think if the quarterback's got to be a captain, I think your starting middle linebacker's got to be a captain. Yeah. And I mean, we're coming from a room that Tommy Eichenberg was a multi-captain. Tuff Borland was a multi-captain. Cody Simon was a captain and a block O. Sonny Styles was a captain and a block O. That like now it's Peyton Pierce's role. Yeah. If Peyton Pierce is back here 12 months from now, I'm sure if we did predict the block O, I'm sure Peyton Pierce will be in the discussion to get that block O. And I think Kenyatta Jackson's growth from a guy who 12 months ago was admitting that I didn't want any of this. I didn't want to be a leader. I wasn't used to it when I got here. Zach Harrison and Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, they were in charge of things. And now here I am as a fourth-year guy, and now I got to be a leader. I don't even like to talk. Yeah. Let alone lead. And so he's gotten from there to 12 months later, he is back as the face of the defensive line room. I don't care if you're talking about edge rushers or defensive tackles. He is the face, he is the voice, he is the tone of that room, and he is a captain. I think that is a very big deal. I think all 7 of these guys are a very big deal because it tells the growth in the story of a group of young men who, like a lot of these guys outside of Brandon Ennis, were not talkative people when they got here. So the fact that these are your leaders is pretty impressive. Okay, that's the captain's talk.
Well, quarterback, best player, starting middle linebacker. It's a pretty decent spot to have 3.
And Ryan was also saying like he liked the fact that it was a multitude of different positions. Yeah. It felt like we're being represented. He said that, I mean, listen, there could have been a world where it's like Luke Montgomery and Carson Hinsman are captains, but he feels like Austin Sierreveld, him and Luke all just like Hinsman and Luke just like took from each other, which is fine. I mean, like they're not captains, but I don't think anybody would say that like Luke and Carson are not leaders on this team. Okay.
The union, the three of them, the union and also beef.
Oh boy. I wish he wouldn't have said that to a microphone. Those guys are going to eat that up. Okay, so let's talk NFL.
I'm good. See you guys. Have a nice day.
Should we start with Deshaun or Shadur?
Dylan
Taylor Green, maybe?
So I want to make this part very, very quick because is this the right assessment? Maybe this. I'm going to present what I think Ryan Day's answer was, and you guys tell me if you think that this is fair. Actually, I'm going to look it up real quick because I don't want to. Essentially, here's what I took away from it. Ryan Day is not against doing it if the option is available to do it. But his bigger point is, I want structure so we're not just doing chaotic things. So I'm not in a staff meeting on Saturday and I'm seeing news break that LSU is adding a Cleveland Brown to its roster. Is it a fair assessment?
Yeah. It was basically like I don't like this, but if it's going to help Ohio State, like we'll go down that path. We kind of talked about it with Bill Landis a little bit after practice. We're just like, there isn't really a guy that Ohio State could do this with. Like Caden Curry is going to make the Colts. Tywan Malone doesn't have eligibility. So it's like if there are guys you're going to point to, it's just not going to happen at Ohio State. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Could they get someone who's like this Browns tight end who is in the portal, right? He's not going back to LSU. He's going to LSU. He was at Ole Miss. He's following Lake Kiffin. So, but the point is, Ryan Day doesn't like it. He'll do it if he feels like it's going to help Ohio State. But part of why he doesn't like it is it's August 24th and teams are adding players to their roster, and that's kind of the biggest thing to him of just there has to be a way to a date where rosters have to be finalized by he said I'm never going to say something is crazy. I told myself I wasn't going to say that anymore. It's clear that he wanted to be but this is crazy. But I told myself I wasn't going to say this is crazy. There's just no structure. There's no rules. And I know a lot of people don't like it, so I hesitate to say this. I get it from the player's perspective because the class of 2022 spent all of last season. We saw with CJ Hicks the uncertainty of is this going to happen? Is this not going to happen? And the moment you graduate and leave, it happens, right? If CJ Hicks had played a lot for Ohio State last year and he was just out of eligibility, I'd be sitting here saying that's bogus. CJ Hicks should be allowed to come back and play college football another year because he obviously wanted to, and the rule was they just couldn't decide on how they wanted to pass this rule. So I get that, and I think Ryan Day to some extent would get that too. But it's August 24th.
Yeah,
this guy just played a preseason game with the Browns. Mary Kay, our Browns reporter, Hall of Fame Browns reporter, is tweeting on Saturday rain delays over, Browns are coming back on the field. NCAA transfer portal entrant is warming up to play for the Browns. It's just there's no structure. There's no structure, and it's whether you think this rule is the one that breaks the camel's back or not, whatever. You can be on either side of that fence, but it speaks to a bigger point. I think Ohio State having 7 captains speaks to how deep the roster is. I think this stuff happening with the Browns tight end speaks to how much there's just no structure in college football, right? It represents a bigger picture, and that's what Ryan Day's these coaches are trying to deal with.
Yeah, and to Steven's original question, I think this was very much and I think Ryan Day's answer on it was right, because I think you don't want this. You don't want this to happen for anybody. You don't want a player to enter the portal after spending 3 weeks. I would have to look this up, but I know this happened with Texas, where I don't know if it was necessarily a 5-for-5 lawsuit type thing that happened, but they have an offensive lineman who was in camp with the Cowboys who's now back and could play on their offensive line this year. So he gave the right answer, because I think it's wrong. If something's made available to you, you can think it's not right. You can think it's not the moral way to go. You can think it's not the correct way to operate the sport. But if there's a player out there, I don't know, if there's a third offensive tackle who says, I want to play at Ohio State for a year, or if there's a sixth defensive tackle who says, I want to play at Ohio State for a year, you have to open yourself up to that, even if you do hate it, because you can say, do I stand up for my principles and not let my team get better and potentially hurt my team because I believe something to be true? So he gave the right answer, and not to do the pearl clutching thing, but I'm glad he said this. I'm glad Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame said classes start, so how are we going to get the kid enrolled in the university? I don't like that this is where we're at now. I will, unfortunately,
Good for Marcus
feels,
being the guy at Notre Dame who has to talk about classes being part of it.
yeah. There's like 5 schools in the country, like Stanford, Vanderbilt, Notre Dame, like a couple of those schools, Duke, like they all have to talk about it. But like the idea of this is fortunately not going to be a thing for like more than this year. So like this is a specific thing to the class of 2022 because the 5-for-5 ruling is just pertaining to that. They're the ones not grandfathered in. Everybody else from this point on gets 5-for-5. So like class of 2023, they can, they're not going to have to sue for it. Like they're going to get 5-for-5. And the reason why it's happening is because all those players have left and things like that. So fortunately, there is an endpoint, but I do get it from Ryan Day's perspective. If there's a player out there that you think can help your team, you have to do it, even if it makes you want to scream into the void at the NCAA.
Hey, remember when 2 weeks ago, like the ruling happened and Indiana started posting about all these players that came back that they had to hold secret behind closed doors until the ruling happened? And we all thought, Indiana, that's crazy. Why'd you do that? Now we have NFL players playing it. I mean, the NBA already had this problem. Like they had a guy who played in NBA games and then randomly ended up on Alabama's team this year. I think I'm very interested to hear somebody ask Lane Kiffin or Steve Sarkisian about this because those two like to complain about how crazy the sport is, and you're part of the problem. Just because you can go 150 miles per hour in a 50-mile-per-hour zone because there's no cop there doesn't mean you should be doing it. So, like, I don't like the hypocritical stuff of it. Like, you can't say you can't say the sport is crazy and then you go do this, Steve Sarkisian or Lane Kiffin or any other coach who's taking advantage of this stuff. That's insane, dude. What are you doing, Lane? I don't cover Lane Kiffin, so we don't have to go. It's just that's all I thought when that news broke. I can't wait till he gets asked about it and see what his answer is about. Oh, get an opportunity. We had the opportunity to add some player to our team who could help us and try to win a national championship. 6 months later, signing day rolls around. Hey guys, the sport is crazy. People are doing crazy stuff all around the sport. Oh, Lane, like you mean adding NFL players who were in camp? Pot, kettle, meet each other. That's all I got on that. I don't want to go.
Do you think Ohio State should, like, if there's a player out there that like can because you're not going to find like a Devin Sanchez type player. You're not going to find like oh my God, this guy's going to start. So it's a depth piece. But like, do you think Ohio State, if there's a player out there who they're like, hey, we have a position of weakness at X, hey, or we would like to shore up the depth here, and this player says, I would like to go to Ohio State. Do you think Ohio State should do that?
I think they can use their money elsewhere.
That's okay. That's fine because there is an element of like upsetting the apple cart. Like,
if Caden Curry gets cut, you don't think they should pursue that?
That's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem where it's like there is a line in the sand of like, damn, that guy can really help.
I think that's the only way I would do it. Those are two different questions. Gillis asked in general. You're asking about an Ohio State football player. That's a different conversation. Because to Gillis's point, this is a one-off year, and it's like, okay, Caden Curry, because they decided to play him as a freshman more than 5 games, he couldn't take advantage of this stuff. When if this ruling had passed in December of last year, Caden Curry probably is back on this roster. And maybe it changes the way they go about the transfer portal and whatnot. But yes, I think if Caden Curry is out there, sure, for the sake of you can do it, fine. Caden Curry, I'm cool with. I'm speaking to should they do now? Granted, the player that they're adding is a guy who is rejoining Lane Kiffin, just like a lot of these other LSU guys who came from Ole Miss. But if we're talking about just a random player, no,
dude who played at Kentucky last year,
yeah, like no, spend your money elsewhere. If this is a Caden Curry situation, though, he's probably not going to be in this situation. Then I guess I'm fine with it because again, this is a one-off thing that's not going to be a thing. But other than that, the only way I would be like, okay, I get it. Is if Fernando Mendoza, who technically only played 4 years of college football, randomly went, I don't want to sit behind Kirk Cousins this year. I'm going to go back to college football. Hey, Ryan, how you doing?
Carnell Tate only played 3 years of college football.
Carnell Tate's not coming back.
Have you seen what's happening at quarterback in Tennessee? Cardell Tate might want to come back.
Yeah, Jamar Chase was dropping balls in preseason, and then he broke all types of
I'm
records
aware.
as soon as the season.
This was not an anti-Cardell Tate thing. This was an anti-the Titans might be screwed thing.
I'll say this, though, to probably wrap up this conversation.
Yeah.
Ryan Day did mention Tony Petitti by name, right, of having spoken to him about, this stuff. Greg Sankey has, made a nice little nudge at LSU of, hey, by the way, our rules still exist that, if you transfer to stay within the conference, blah, blah, blah. This is going to be a very telling thing of how Greg Sankey and the SEC handle this.
Yep.
Because one of the things that I scoff at a lot, or have scoffed at a lot this offseason, is the stuff you hear from the SEC and the Big Ten of if there's no structure and there's no rules, we're gonna break off and self-govern. And I just continue to say that's great until a school within your conference breaks a rule and now you have to enforce it. So all right, Greg Sankey, what do you do in this situation? Tony Petitti, what would you do if this is in the Big Ten? There could be a lot of coaches and commissioners and people in the Big Ten right now who say, look at LSU, look at the SEC, they're breaking the rules. Okay, what would you do if it was your situation? First of all, let's start there. Second of all, all right, what does self-governance look like? This is a chance for you to enforce something in your conference. What's that look like? What's it look like when a school, okay, and maybe this situation is not massive because LSU's got a better tight end than him anyway, so it's what does it matter? But let's pretend it's Sam Levitt, and now he's going to LSU. It's a much, much better player, much bigger situation. All right, SEC, you're going to tell LSU they can have a better quarterback and they can be a better college football playoff contender?
And you can't ask your member institutions to legislate this themselves because, let's say Stefan was running Ohio State, I was running Michigan, and Steven was running Oregon.
I don't want Oregon. I knew you were going to do that.
That's fine. It's fine. USC, fine. We're all running these things, and we're we think we can win the Big Ten this year, and we think we can do this year. And then we're all saying that I don't like this. I think it's bad. And Stefan fires the first shot and says, Caden Curry got cut. We're going to go get him. And Caden Curry comes back to Ohio State. You know what I'm thinking? If I'm Michigan, well, he just did this. I might not like it, but Ohio State just got better because of this. Why would I not try to make myself better? And then I do something. Steven's sitting there with USC going well, hang on. We just lost an offensive lineman. So couldn't we go get another offensive lineman? We got to do this too. It's impossible to do that because the second you look to your left and right and see somebody's trying to cheat in the 40-yard dash, you're going to take a step forward too.
That's where the commissioner and the conference have to step in. It's okay, good luck telling Ohio State they're not allowed to get better. That's you're counting on them to make the playoff and make you money. Good luck with that.
That's what the interesting thing is. LSU is not Ole Miss. It's not Mississippi State. They're not LSU has national championship aspirations this year.
Yeah,
in a conference that hasn't won a national mind you, hasn't played in a national championship game. The team who's won their conference hasn't won a playoff game in 3 years. So, yeah, you're right. It's okay, you want to win or you want to be a good person. And that's life in 2026. Let's play a game. That was dark. I don't see it. This is why we need football back. I don't want to talk about this stuff. That's what Pete Dacos and Pete Damon, they're supposed to talk about this stuff. Supposed to talk about football.
Yeah, let's talk about something fun, like TCU playing North Carolina in Dublin, Ireland.
Yes.
No, please. I'm saying that. No, that was the joke. Was there's a little bit more than football going on at North Carolina?
No, I don't want to talk about that.
Guess what? For 3.5 hours, unless they show whatever her name is, I can't remember her name. Unless they show her Jordan Hudson. If they show Jordan Hudson, then I'll be reminded of that. Otherwise, sorry.
Otherwise, I just want to know what Belichick's going to do on 2nd and 7. That's it. Are
you allowed to complain about fall weddings if it's during week 0? Because I do have one on Saturday, and
no,
you can't.
Can I say something about that real quick? I get it. It's a fun bit, but we get it, dude.
Could not agree more with Steven.
We get it. And some things do reach a point where it becomes such a bit that it's a caricature bit at this point. We get it. If you like football, you'd rather not go to a wedding in the fall. But we're also adults here and understand that fall weddings are less expensive.
Yes.
And we're all of an age where our friends are getting married or we're getting married. Stop it. We don't have to do this every fall. Like, hey, remember, I'm going to neglect you for the next 4 months because of some guys throwing a ball around.
I can't go to a wedding because Georgia plays Alabama that weekend. Shut up. Go to your friends or family's wedding.
I mean, that's tough.
Go to
See
your
what
friends or
Ryan
family's
Coleman did
wedding.
last time?
It's fair. Fam, I had a year where I went to multiple weddings. And
Pull
you
up
know
your
what was
phone.
on
Watch it
at
on
the
your
weddings? You know what was on at the weddings? The football games. Stop it, everybody.
Be adults. Be adults.
And listen, and I'm speaking more to people who do what we do for a living.
Yeah.
Of like, I'm bro. I gotta watch football. I don't care about my friends and family anymore.
I went to my cousin's wedding last year when Ohio State played Illinois. You know what I don't regret? Going to my cousin's wedding with all of my family. I'm sorry that I missed 34-16 in Illinois, and I'm sure that you guys were terrified that you missed 35-7 Ohio State, Iowa in 2024 because you both had weddings on the same day. But guess what? The world kept spinning.
I'll be
JJ
fair.
made that catch.
Yeah, and then guess what happened? You saw it on your phone 500 times. It's
I
fine.
didn't. It's like the tweet came across.
I'm sure you remember more about the wedding than you do about the game.
I was talking about it on Twitter, and Gillis is like, "What time is it there?" I'm like, "Ball never stops."
Oh yeah, you were in Japan. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 6 a.m. in Japan.
Depends on how the wedding went.
Yeah, but it's okay. We don't have to do this thing every year. I'm like, hey, it's
Steven's
fall.
best take on Buckeye Talk. Just a great take by Steven. I'm so glad he said that.
It's okay.
I'm the one that has to be on the opposite side of the fence here, but so be it.
I don't know. I don't mind the concept. I just
no. I agree with you guys. I was more so playing devil's advocate.
The bit we get it. The bit was cool 2 years ago. It's not cool anymore. It's just like you doing it because you don't have anything else to talk about. You have a microphone in your face.
Also, if it's not like an all day wedding situation, shout out Big Noon. You can watch all of the noon games.
Yeah, weddings at 5:30. You know what you could do? Watch the noon games. Watch the first half of the 3:30 games. Put your phone in your pocket for 20 minutes while the couple or friends or whoever that you're seeing gets married. And then you go to dinner and you get to look at your friends and say, hey, Pitt just took the lead on Miami in the third quarter. And everybody goes, ooh. And it's fun. Be adults. That's all I ask.
We're gonna run through every single position room, and I have them labeled, and we're gonna scale 1 to 10. It scale is 1 to 10. 1 is please send help, even if it's from the NFL, and 10 is essentially like I've got this, not worried about it at all. And this is based on the way Ryan Day, between Monday today and last time we spoke with him after scrimmage number 2, he has talked about every single position group at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So based on those, what do we think the vibes are and the feelings about these position groups based on what Ryan Day has had to say about each and every one of these positions? And I want to start with quarterback number 2.
6.
I was going to say 6. I think 6 is right because I think it's not a situation where he's looking at it going, we're screwed if Tavian gets hurt. Like the famous Tom Moore, Peyton Manning quote that I can't say on this podcast because it's not safe. But basically, if your starting quarterback goes down, you're in trouble. That's true for anybody. Mm-hmm. But I think he's at least looking at this going, we have options. It's not like it's not like it's Tavian and nobody or Luke and nobody. I think he's like, look, keep getting better. Keep progressing every day. And we've got some options there. So it's like 6 out of 10.
I'm at a 3. And I'm at a 3 while acknowledging that quarterback is always going to be Ryan Day's baby, and he is very much harder on his quarterbacks than any other position group. He will always be harder on the quarterbacks than any other position group. But him being full CEO mode meant that he has spent a lot of time with Savion St. Clair. Because who is spending time with QB1? Arthur Smith and Billy Fessler. And that was rough to watch the first 3 days, watching Ryan and Tavian. And the fact that after the second scrimmage, it was like, yeah, Luke Fahey. Luke Fahey's pushing Luke Fahey. And I said it to, do you know who your quarterback 2 is? And his answer wasn't yes. And I think after the spring, he probably envisioned a world where if someone would have asked him on August 24th, do you know who your backup quarterback is? His answer would have been yes, because we've had years. where we've asked him, do you know who your backup quarterback is? And he said, Kyle McCord's our backup quarterback. He has said that Devin Brown is our starting quarterback, even though Julian Sand is doing some nice things. That Lincoln Keenholz is our backup quarterback. So I'm at a 3. Because it's not just about right now. It's about, January is not that far away. And one of these two guys, some of this can be a credit to Luke Fakey, but it's also I don't know, at some point, trade's got to turn into something consistent with the guy that you think is your next guy. Running back.
Probably
running back in general, or RB1,
running back.
Running back.
I'd probably say an 8. I think that first scrimmage, eased Ryan Day's mind quite a bit on what they had with Bo and Isaiah at the top.
Running back might have been the position group that we went into fall camp that we could have said Ryan Day was the most nervous about, because he brought that up a few times. So maybe a 2 or a 3, just because you hadn't seen it. I said earlier, these coaches are creatures of, certainty, and they want as much certainty as you can get. Now I'm at I'll say a 9, because the things we've heard about Bo Jackson have been great, and I think they trust Isaiah and Jacoby Jackson.
I'm at a 10. I think all those things that Ryan Day was saying for 9 months was more just trying to challenge Isaiah and Bo, and they couldn't answer the bell in the spring because they were both not full go. And then Bo came out in the first script. And then Isaiah had a really good off season, and then they threw Isaiah out there with the ones to keep that pressure on Bo of hey, we're challenging you. And then they got out there for the first scrimmage, and those pads came on, and Bo said, give me my job back and stop playing with me. Because today, every other time that Day's been asked, hey, what position are you worried about? It's running backs worried me. He enlisted running back today. So I think it's a 10. I think they understood what the issue was last year, and they very much needed Bo to get to the gear that they needed him to get to, because they knew he could do it. They just needed to tap into it. And whatever they have done worked. Now we just need to see it happen against real opponents. Wide receivers not named Jeremiah Smith.
10.
That's
interesting. I'm at a 9, an 8 or a 9. I'm slightly lower.
He said with relative confidence, I'll just say with confidence, that he feels like he's got 6 guys who can play in that receiver room.
Jeremiah Smith, Brandon Ennis, Devin McEwen, Brock Boyd, Chris Henry Jr., Phillip Bell.
Yeah.
Threw in a Desi Jones, and he said Kyle Parker is not back yet.
Yeah.
You forgot Brock Boyd.
Oh, yeah, and White Lightning. He said it was working with the ones. He said he was working. Can I get a sidecar from my bus? Cool. Go ahead.
The 6 are JJ, Brandon, Devin, Chris, Brock.
Parker, it's probably Kyle Parker if everybody's
probably Kyle Parker when he's healthy.
But
because he was asked, is that the 4 veterans and the 2 freshmen? And he was like, yeah. And then he mentioned Phillip Bell and some of those other guys. But those core 6 when Kyle Parker's healthy are kind of the 6 that it's if we played a game tomorrow, and one of them had to play, he can play.
But the more Kyle Parker misses, it sounds like Phillip Bell's at least taking advantage of the opportunities as a second team slot. But he said Brock Boyd's working with the ones as well. And
he can play all 3 positions. I took note of that specifically.
He said that in the spring too. But
he said that in spring, but the fact that he said it 2 weeks before their first game, I think is.
And it's the fact that he paired those 2 things together. He's working with the ones, and he can play all 3 positions. And he also mentioned that him and Julian have built a lot of chemistry.
Yeah.
Those are 3 buzzwords for me of, okay, is this guy going to play football? But also, are you going to, not just is he going to be on the field getting cardio, is he involved? And it sounds like Brock Boyd's going to be involved, and Chris Henry Jr. is going to be involved. And we know JJ is going to be involved in Brandon Ennis and Devin McEwen. Okay. Tight end.
3.5.
4.
I like that he had names this time. That gave me confidence. He said Nate Roberts, Mason Williams, and Bennett Christian. I asked him if he had a pure starter. He said no, but he said this is just kind of role guys, which means it is going to be more of a by committee position where it's like, I don't know who's out there. I don't know whoever Keenan Bailey decides needs to be out there in a given snap in a given situation. You said you were 3.5. Stefan, you're at a 4.
Yeah.
I'll go 4 with you, Gillis. But I am like,
it's one of those things where it's what I think if we were to like further like diagnose this and put this under the magnifying glass, and we were like, 1 out of 10, how do you feel about the ceiling? 1 out of 10, how do you feel about the floor? I think the ceiling is like, I don't know. And I think the floor is like, I think we're going to be fine. I think if you gave him truth serum and said, what do you think about the floor of the room? I think we'll be fine because we've got 1, 2, 3. He didn't name Hunter Welsing, but like Welsing is a 47th year college player who's on the tight end room as well. Like, you know.
Yeah, but he didn't name him.
He didn't name him, sure. But I mean, he is the 4th tight end.
It's just, it sounds like it's just going to be personnel based. Like, what's the package on the field?
Is he the 4th tight end? Because he very much separated the two groups.
Sure.
He said there are these 3, and then everybody else is a depth position. So I'm not just going to say because he's an old man that he's the 4th tight end. I think the floor and the ceiling might be the same thing, and that's the problem.
Yeah, maybe it's Max LeBlanc. Look, we did see Max LeBlanc look
he looked a lot better than some of the other tight ends during practice.
I think the ceiling and the floor might be the same this year. And the question is that a problem? Or can they do the baseline level of a tight end job, especially since they're not going to be featured nearly as often as they were featured 12 months ago? Offensive line.
We'll go 8.5. It's for me, it's just a matter of like,
go do it.
Like let's see and more do it.
Sure.
Like, I know what Philip Daniels is, right? At least in terms of a floor, right? There's maybe more of a ceiling that's untapped. But like, I know what Philip Daniels is. I know what Searveld is. Montgomery, Hinsman. Like, I know what those guys are. It's just let's go see what Ian Moore does when he's out there.
Okay.
In the words of Billy Bob from Varsity Blues, a 10. I give it a 10. So I give it a 10.
Gillis, I think to hear today.
I think he looks at this unit, and I think part of the like, hey, Searveld's been working at right guard. He said like Cameron T. Robinson from the Athletic asked him like as a follow up, like, so just to be clear, like before Austin got kind of banged up, he was playing at guard, right? He said yes. So they've kind of known what this offensive line is going to be, and I think part of the reason why they were waiting and part of the reason why there was this element was we've got to make sure that Ian Moore and Philip Daniels are going to be fine at tackle. And the fact that they have not, I think this is much more, I look at their actions, not their words. And the fact that they have not gone, oh crap, we can't do this with Ian Moore. Or, oh crap, we're really in trouble with Philip Daniels. I think they're looking at this line going, we got something. And I think he's very confident in this.
So back in the spring, I asked Tyler Bowen this, and I also asked Dayit last time. This idea of like I was just trying to get through the process of how they were trying to come to the, like, just kind of show your work a little bit of, is this a decision? Who's in charge of this decision? Essentially, is it what's best for Austin Searveld and what maximizes him, or how much of it is like, hey, this might be our best 5? Because there is a world where they get to the point when they think their best 5 is still Austin Searveld playing left tackle.
Yeah.
But what's best for Austin Searveld is very different. Tyler Bowen looked at me and said, shut up and don't ask me questions like that. Ryan Day, because they were still in it, went, we have to do what's best for Ohio State. That was not his answer today. He brought up NFL and how they project, which is what my question, right? Because that was the whole point of my question. I think what's best for Austin Searveld is him playing guard this year, because that's what he's going to be in the NFL. Yes, he was a very quality tackle for them. He's not going to play tackle in the National Football League because Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons and Will Anderson and those guys are going to eat him alive, respectfully speaking. So when he went there with it, okay, well then I think my follow-up would have been like, okay, well not follow-up, just now I'm thinking the way he talked about that trio and what that can be of Luke Montgomery, Carson Hinsman, and Austin Searveld. And it goes back to the union and the beef in there and all those things. It's like, yeah, we're going to be able to run the ball. It goes like what he was saying back in the spring of being able to like kind of bulldoze guys in the run game and do that and like really get after guys, because I think all three of those guys, that's what it is. If those are your three interior guys, you're getting after folks in the run game. So he might have mentioned it's the fact that like, okay, our tackle's enough, right? So this was done in a way of like, we might have the best interior offensive line in college football. Now, if along the way Ian Moore turns into a top 50 draft pick and Phillip Daniels can play at the level he played for the first 2 months of the season, we might have the best offensive line in the country, period. Yep. But this felt way more about Austin Sehraveld and maximizing that interior. And so, yeah, like that's why the Ian Moore reps have mattered for the last 6 months. Because if we're going to do this, if we're going to go chase this greatness, we can't like turn this into BS chasing this greatness. Because who cares if you're mauling people in the run game if every time you drop back to throw the ball to Jeremiah Smith, Julian Sands running for his life again. So I just thought that was very notable.
I think what's best for Austin Sehraveld has turned into what's best for Ohio State as well.
And when did that marriage happen? Was it he got hurt along with he wasn't available in the spring, so Ian Moore got tackle snaps galore with the ones going up against Kenyatta and Bo and everybody else, and which means he got to have success, he got to fail, and it continued, and then Austin got hurt again and missed like a week. And so it's even more of, well, Ian, you're just going to be out there. Figure it out. I know Kenyatta's kicking your butt. Figure it out. And then it finally clicked on Saturday. Because it sounds like the offense has been kind of winning these scrimmages, which I don't know if anybody's shocked by that. Like, it's not, and that's not a sign that the defense isn't going to be good. It's just the offense has a returning starting quarterback, the best player in college football, 1,000-yard rusher, and a very veteran offensive line. But yeah, that's my question is, when did that marriage happen of like, this is already the best thing for Austin Sehraveld, and now it's also the best thing for Ohio State, because that's the magic. Those are the magic words. Defensive line as a whole. Actually, I guess I can split these up. Let's do edge first.
Edge, I'll say 6.5. Okay. 7. I'll go 7.
Yeah, I'm at 7.
I agree. Because it's again, I want to see it.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like the tight end conversation, where it's like we have a bunch of guys who can serve different roles, but like there is a front end guy that like is supposed to be a dude.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And it's like, okay, if Kenyatta Jackson takes that next step, and then you pair it with Bo Atkinson, looks comfortable. Quay Russo in his very specific role, and then you got Epi and Zion. Yeah, I agree with that. DT.
Like 8.5.
Oh, I'm also at like a 6 or a 7 here. I read, with what he was saying today, he was like, we've got good depth. Those guys can roll. We want to continue to see guys emerge. There's been bright spots across the board. I think we have a bunch of guys that can start. Maybe that, I guess it's a real glass half full, glass half empty type of thing, where it's like we have a bunch of guys that can start. Like the way that I read that was we have a bunch of rotational pieces outside of Edric, and we're looking for somebody to take a leap. And maybe that's true. So I think he feels more confident than not about that room. But I think they would like somebody to be like a definitive, you are going to play next to Edric Houston all the time because he can't take you off the field.
I think it's interesting that you took it that way, because I took it the polar opposite way. I think whenever he starts the thing I've learned is whenever he starts just easily listing off dudes, that means he's super, super excited about the position. He just like easily rattled off Edric Houston, Will Smith Jr., James Smith, John Walker. He threw Jason Moore in that mix. He threw Damari Simeon, the freshman, which I thought was like, huh. And that's not the first time I've heard. Yeah, and it's not the first time I've heard Damari's name come up in these conversations. So, okay. I took it as like they're just gonna roll defensive tackle. Like Edric might be the best of the group, sure, if he hits, but it sounds like they've got 4 for sure. Jason, if he comes along the right way, and they got this freshman who they think can play. Because when you start, it's one thing to ask. Brock Boyd got asked about today.
Mm-hmm.
He was the only freshman that was mentioned today that was specifically asked about. There were 2 other freshmen who were mentioned that Dave brought up on his own. One of which we're not really shocked by at this point, and the other one's Damari Simeon, which I thought was very, very notable because I don't know. I think we all kind of chalked this up to those 3 young defensive tackles. This is a learn year, and next year they better be ready to ball. And instead, it's like Damari's like, no, if you give me 3 to 5 snaps a game, I'll be all right. I can do this.
It seemed like the way he was talking to initially, like he listed those 6 guys at defensive tackle, but it kind of sounds like he had mentioned Edric, James Smith, and Will Smith Jr. And then kind of mentioned John Walker. So even to me, kind of seemed like maybe there's a top 3, but they got 5 or 6 that they're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if push comes to shove, so like that.
Yeah.
I thought the way he went about his phrasing there, like I kind of looked up. I was like, did he mention John Walker? And then he mentioned John Walker. I was like,
because that's a good point. It's like there's a way he names people when he's like, this is who I'm actually going, like, this is who we trust. And then he'll get into the back end of, well, I also don't want to like not name people stupid.
Yeah.
And like, you're right. Because it was the same thing with like Desi Jones getting named at wide receiver felt like the other side of that. Like, well, now you're just naming people, Ryan. Like, we get it. You know your roster.
I'll also say too, like they have Edger coming back, and they went out and got John Walker and James Smith. Will Smith Jr. gets brought up a ton this camp.
Yeah,
like he is. I don't view Will Smith Jr. as like he's one of the 4 that's going to like play a lot. Like I look at Will Smith Jr. like this guy might just be like really good, and like I don't know, late 4th quarter, like it's coming down to it. You need to stop, and like Will Smith Jr. is playing really well that day. Like, does he play over James Smith? Like it wouldn't shock me to this. How they're talking about him, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, I think there's this list. For me, there's this tier of like, if he's on the field in an important snap, are you holding your breath?
Mm-hmm.
No. With James Smith, I'm not worried with James Smith being on the field. Damari Simeon, I'm all like, okay, let me see. But they named him, so it is what it is. Linebacker.
9. I'm very confident in that group.
I'm going to say a 10. They love Peyton Pierce. Christian Allegro seems to have flashed. And then it's not just like, I think we talk about it like with tight end, it's like floor ceiling. With linebacker, I think they're like, we have a really high ceiling, and we've also got like 4 or 5 guys that we can roll in there as well. So I think he loves the linebacker.
8. And it's simply because I just want to see it. That little lost 2 superstars, and they're just like, yeah, we got more superstars. And I know we keep wanting to do the Heartline thing with James Laurinaitis, but we weren't there yet at this point in the Heartline tenure of, well, this is just what it's going to be from now on. I think we were excited, but you had to have some room for reservations there. Outside corner.
8. Excited about Devin Sanchez. I think he's going to be a star, and just like Jermaine is, I'm going to wait for him to walk the walk instead of talk the talk.
Okay. 7. Same sort of idea. I think they feel good about what they have, but I think there is this element of like, we got to see Devin be a true lockdown corner, and also we got to see Jermaine take a step.
So Devin's first number when he first got here was 4 because Sonny was still wearing number 6 until he got the block O. And then he finally got his number 6 once Sonny got the number 0. So I added up 6 and 4 and got 10. Nickel.
This is a hard one. I'll say 6.
Okay.
Because you could love what Jay Timmons brings. He also has not, forget like, he played in a depth role last year. He just has never played in a college game ever. So I think there's probably some worry of like, we're questioning what that would be. And I'll say 6 because it seems like they love him, but he's a freshman.
Yeah, I'll go up to 7. I was around that same ballpark. I mean, if we're gonna say like I got to see with the tight ends, it's like, well, I kind of want to see with the true freshman. But what I will say is it's I think it's pretty apparent that this is Jay Timmons starting is a move of strength as opposed to like a reaction to a weakness. Like it's pretty clear Ryan Day likes what he's done in camp. Like does not matter who else is on the roster. Like, he's just been good.
They fundamentally changed the way they went about deploying their back end because Jay Timmons keeps ball. Like, there's an all ACC safety who is not in the conversation to start because Jay Timmons happened. There is a third-year safety who, because this is what we do on the beat. We make a big deal out of every morsel of thing that we ever see. So when he speaks on the first day of spring practice, we're all like, "Oh, Leroy Roker." Hey, remember when we were like, "Hey, is Leroy going to start over Terry Moore?" And the answer was no. The true freshman is going to start. Also, I found the quote. I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but I said that. Remember back when we did the hot takes before the spring, and I'm pretty sure I had said something about Jay Timmons. I found the quote, and now I need to find it again because sometimes you find things and you're going to lose it. Okay, so here's the quote. I'm going to buy stock in Jay Timmons. Jay Timmons is intriguing to me, so I'm buying stock into that because Ohio State bought stock into that early. They bought low, and at least from a recruiting standpoint, but now he's a 5-star. So clearly Ohio State was early to the table when it came to Jay Timmons. Plus, if you watch his film, there's some versatility in how they might use him. He's an intriguing piece, especially of the true freshmen. Like, which one of these true freshmen do I think we get to the Texas game and he's out there in a high leverage situation? He's high on that list of people who I think might do that. It's because I think Ohio State might have found a diamond in the rough that the rest of the world was late to, and now he's a 5-star cornerback. And I said, there's something there, and I'm looking for the guy that we're all not looking at. I think a lot of capital has been spent both literally and figuratively on Chris Henry Jr. and Sincere Johnson. And then there's the third 5-star recruit who kind of snuck his way into being in that top 32. And he's at a position where there's a wide open competition in the cornerback room that maybe isn't being talked about enough. We know for sure who the starting outside cornerbacks are, but that doesn't mean Dominic Kelly can't make things interesting. But at nickel, you can say Earl Little, but what if we get through 15 practices and we're like, yeah, Earl Little is good, but this kid, Jay Timmons, is special.
Good take. The only thing I would add, Ohio State was late to the party too. They got him a month before signing day from Florida.
No, I know, but
so it wasn't like they were early. But otherwise,
I remember because we were on our way to Purdue when that happened, and you were driving. He was committed to Florida State, but he was not like a top 100.
He started taking visits in senior year,
right? But his senior film is what turned him into a 5-star recruit. Yeah. So that's what I mean by like Ohio State was early to the party in comparisons to like Florida State, with all due respect, is not who we're talking about when we're talking about the party.
It's also where his dad played. Like,
right. They also don't get to come to the party I'm talking about. That's a Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, Bama, Michigan when they're good, Oregon, Indiana party. Miami, that's the type of party I'm talking about. So yeah, man, that was from our hot takes, and I think that was March 24th when we were talking about the cornerbacks where I said that. So I feel good about that one. I'll say 8 because fine, I won't be at a 10 for a guy who's never played college football before, though I don't know, 2 years ago I was at a 10 with a true freshman 5-star who had never played football before. But again, is he forcing his way onto the field because other guys aren't playing good enough, or is he forcing his way onto the field because he's a dog? And every time someone speaks about him, the latter answer keeps being the answer. So that doesn't mean that he's going to come out here and be an All-American in year one. But I don't know, the Sean Alexander Freshman Player of the Year award is out there. So I'm there with Jay Timmons. Like, they think he's one of their best players already. And maybe his background, Gillis, is why. He is the son of a former NFL player. So maybe he's just a little bit more ready at a position where there was a wide open thing. Safety. These are the back two safeties.
10.
Okay.
9.
Hating on Jalen McClain. 9.5.
I was the only one who predicted Jalen McClain to be an All-American among this group.
And yet, here you are, the lowest in the confidence meter.
Nine's not because of Jalen McClain.
No, I think the reason I'm not at a 10 has nothing to do with Jalen McClain and Earl Little. It's more about, okay, what's going on there with those other two guys? Yeah. Because he said they were going to roll, but I'll believe that when I see it. If they play 70 snaps against Texas and Jalen McClain and Earl Little play 67 of them apiece, then like
not stunning.
And it doesn't. Again, I'm a 10 if you just want to talk about starters, but we're talking about the room because that's the way I put it down there. Okay, so that's that. Any other things that we felt were important?
Real quick in that safety conversation, Ryan Day did have some really good things to say about Simeon Caldwell, who lost his black stripe over the weekend. And I thought one thing in particular, let me make sure I got it right here in my notes. One thing in particular that he pointed out was the communication skills of him. He's like, for a freshman, he said he's done well as a freshman, great instincts, communicates well. I thought that was interesting. Like, we talk a lot about Jalen McClain and kind of him being more of a key piece in the communication this year with Caleb Downs gone. So like for there to be a freshman who's standing out to Ryan Day, like in that aspect, I thought was pretty interesting to hear him mention that, like kind of unprovoked. I think he was asked about Terry Moore and Leroy Roker, but the name Simeon Caldwell like did come up in the question. So it's not like he brought up Simeon out of nowhere, but like the way he praised him was like, oh, you didn't have to say that, but okay. Yeah.
I wonder if we end up in a world where Ohio State's number 1 and number 2 nickels are freshmen, because that's where Simeon Caldwell has been working. But I think he's like a nickel the way that they tried to do with Sonny in 23 Gillis, but it actually might work this time because he's not going to turn into a linebacker. Sure. Okay, 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99. After that, we had a mark it down Monday today where we marked down our Heisman Trophy finalists. I thought that was a fun exercise. And that's Day. This is the last time we talk today in the preseason. We will talk with him again on Tuesday afternoon going forward for the next 4 months of our lives. We are expected to talk with players Wednesday evening. I would assume that's going to be some of the captains. Maybe it's all of them. Maybe it's a couple of them, but that's the expectation right now. And football will be on your screens this weekend. Some fun stuff planned. Live show on Wednesdays starts this week. We are going to be coming to a consensus top 22 Ohio State football players to start the season. I think that'll be fun to come to that consensus. There will be some arguments. There will be some ones where we don't spend nearly as much time, but that's what you're here for, man. That's Buckeye Talk. 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99. After that, for Stefan, Krajisnik, and Andrew Gillis, I'm Steven Means. Talk to you guys later.